talking about the DELPHI murders. Richard Allen has been found guilty of the murders of Libby and Abby. Do a quick read on this very sad situation. Read on the prosecution first, then the defence, then we'll go on to others. Prosecution, they stuck to their message. They were very clear, they were very targeted. And this message is very sort of a dark card, because a lot of what happened in that trial was not able to be made public, and the trial itself wasn't public, which, yeah, I think is a bad look, because not everybody's people aren't going to understand how the jury came to that decision, because all you heard was sound bites of what evidence was presented, and you couldn't see the evidence yourself. Okay, prosecution. They were listening carefully. I think they were listening to how the jury was receiving their case, and they were fine-tuning their case as they went along. Oath. This, to me, is that the prosecution definitely believed that he was guilty. What about the defence? They found it difficult because there was that gag order in place, so they couldn't put information out into the public that they wanted to put out, and they couldn't even present to the jury information that they wanted to present. They weren't allowed to present, for example, an alternative witness in relation to the bullet evidence, the cartridge evidence that supposedly matched Richard Allen's gun, but then another witness said that it didn't really match it. So they were constrained by what they could put out there, and I think those are all going to be grounds for appeal, when all the times that they weren't allowed to put there were alternative sketches of the potential perpetrator. They weren't allowed to put those forward, so there was a lot they weren't allowed to put forward. Summons, yeah, they're definitely going to appeal. Individuality. I think this is the judge, possibly. She really ruled against the defence a lot, more so than I've seen in most other cases. And I think this is the defence saying, listen, she had an agenda in that she just wouldn't let us argue the case properly. Famously, she kicked the defence lawyers off the case at one stage, and they had to go to the Supreme Court to be allowed to be reinstated. Congratulations. So that's the successful prosecution, and I think that's how Richard Allen's feeling at the moment. Drowning. The thing that concerned me about this case was that they put him in a maximum security jail, in his maximum security prison, while he was awaiting trial, and then that's when after he'd been in solitary confinement for 13 months, he gave some confessions, and I'm not sure that those confessions could be trusted, because clearly he was mentally unwell. Let's pull for Richard Allen. Storm, yeah, it's been an absolute nightmare. Second chakra, Angel Uriel. That's about birth and creativity. Explain that, cards. Yeah. This I'm getting is that there's really are no winners. There are no winners. Everybody's lives were so different before this all started. There are no real winners. A guilty verdict won't bring back the girls. And I just, yeah, as a lawyer, I have some concerns about some of the tactics used in this trial. Tell us more about Richard Allen. This other deck. Tell us more about Richard Allen. Wonder if this means he's in denial, mentally in denial. The warrior. What does that mean? Cards? What does that mean? Does it mean he's going to fight another day? Is he going to appeal? Rigid. and it's upside down. I think he was very hopeful of getting out. Another one of Richard Allen, the High Priestess of Fire. Okay, tell us, cards, did Richard Allen do this thing? Is Richard Allen truly guilty, although he's legally guilty? Trapped. Well, he is trapped. He was in prison for all this time, the maximum security prison, instead of being in a jail. And I think if he had been in a jail, his mental health wouldn't have deteriorated so much, and then any confessions he might have made would have been more trustworthy. But anyway, the jury decided that. Richard Allen, was he guilty? Was he guilty? Understanding. It's not really giving me a clear answer. Come on, cards. Was he guilty? Confidence. He was confident that if people understood the evidence, that maybe he would go free. I'm not sure. Okay, let's ask a different question. Let's ask about the jury. How are the jury feeling? How are they thinking? They deliberated for several days, 19 hours in all. Risk, whichever way they decided was going to be a risk. But this is also justice for the girls. Remember, they were on the high bridge, and the bridge guy said, "Guys, down the hill," and so this might be them considering the girls. But of course, you want justice, but you also want to make sure you get the right person, otherwise it's not true justice. So, what else about the jury? The jury. Remember, don't forget, again, they're really thinking about the victims. Tell us more about the jury. What do you think? What do you think of the decision? What do you think of how the trial went? What do you think of how the judge kept so much evidence out from the defense perspective? For me, I prefer that the defense is allowed to put more evidence in and then let the jury decide based on more information rather than less. Black and white. And it says differences there. So any differences between the jury, obviously, amongst the jury was resolved. It was a unanimous verdict. Not sure if they saw things as black and white, but they certainly took their time and considered everything. One more, and then the underlying grove. Yeah, this is them retiring to deliberate. They took their duty very seriously, and Priestess of the Earth, they were very grounded. They were very down to earth. They considered all of the evidence. That this is not a duty that they took lightly. And I just need to do two more from this deck. Two more about the jury. Yeah, they really were thinking. They were. So this one says, thinking man doesn't necessarily mean man. They weighed up. See, he's got something in his hand there. They really did very carefully weigh up the evidence. They were very anxious about being on this jury. They were anxious about making a decision. And in the end, things that were hidden came to light, and they feel that they made the correct decision. They had to balance, it's the angel of balance. They had to balance all of the evidence and come to what they believed was the correct decision. And this journey here, doesn't that remind you of the girls on the bridge? Yeah, so they did their very best, and with the honest belief that they have reached the correct decision based on the evidence provided. And I really feel for the jury. They had to see some very distressing, disturbing evidence, and I just hope that people can move on and heal. Obviously, the defense will appeal the decision. The sentencing hasn't happened yet either, so that will happen at a later date. Anyway, very tragic, very sad, all around. No winners at all. But the jury feels as though they gave a balanced decision. And I'm not going to read into the energy of the families because their lives have been intruded upon enough. So to anybody out there who's lost a family member, and particularly if you've lost a family member unexpectedly or violently, I'm sending you all love and blessings. And to everybody, just hug your loved ones. You never know how long you've got with them. And sending you all love and blessings, and may the angels walk with you now and always.